The arrival of Russian warships in Venezuelan ports is a bold message from Moscow to Washington. These advanced vessels, including the Admiral Gorshkov frigate and the Kazan submarine, are operating just off the U.S. coast, a direct challenge to America's traditional dominance in the Western Hemisphere. For 2 centuries, the U.S. has treated this region as its exclusive sphere of influence. Now, Russia is signaling that era may be ending. This isn't just a military maneuver, it's a global political statement. The U.S. has pressured Venezuela for years, while expanding NATO in Europe, moves Russia sees as threats. In response, Russia is projecting power near America's borders, turning the Caribbean into a new front in global competition. The Kazan submarine, capable of launching cruise missiles, is a clear show of force. Its presence near the U.S. mainland echoes Cold War tensions. For Venezuela's Maduro, hosting Russian warships brings security and international legitimacy, showing he has powerful allies. This forces the U.S. to reconsider whether isolating countries like Venezuela is backfiring, pushing them toward American rivals. The sight of Russian sailors in La Guaira is a stark reminder. The lines of global influence are shifting. The U.S. can no longer act unilaterally in its own hemisphere without expecting a response. To grasp the significance of Russian warships in Venezuela, we must revisit the Monroe Doctrine. Established in 1823, it warned European powers to stay out of the Americas, cementing U.S. dominance in the region. For generations, the U.S. enforced this doctrine with unrivaled economic and military power. The Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico were considered an American lake, but the arrival of Russian naval fleets, including nuclear submarines, is a direct challenge to this legacy. Russia's presence signals that the U.S. no longer has exclusive authority in the hemisphere. By accepting Venezuela's invitation, Russia asserts its right to build partnerships and project power anywhere, even in America's backyard. The Monroe Doctrine's era is ending. The American lake now has uninvited guests. The U.S. must now compete for influence at home, not just abroad. Simply demanding rivals stay out is no longer enough. Countries like Russia and China are offering alternatives to U.S. dominance. The Western Hemisphere is now part of a multipolar world. Russian warships in the Caribbean are linked to NATO's eastward expansion in Europe. After the Cold War, NATO grew to include former Soviet bloc countries, moving closer to Russia's borders. Russia saw this as a threat, especially with talk of Georgia and Ukraine joining. The U.S. insisted NATO was defensive, but Russia viewed it as encroachment. In response, Russia mirrored U.S. actions. If America can expand alliances near Russia, Russia can project power near the U.S. Deploying warships to Venezuela and Cuba is Russia's way of showing the U.S. what it feels like to have a rival nearby. This tit-for-tat has fueled a dangerous cycle of escalation and mistrust. Each side sees its actions as justified, and the others as aggressive. The result? A tense standoff from Ukraine's borders to the Caribbean Sea. The logic of reciprocity now shapes global security. The U.S.-Venezuela standoff intensified after Hugo Chávez's 1999 election, as he used oil wealth to challenge U.S. influence. The U.S. responded with pressure and supported a failed coup in 2002. Under Maduro, relations worsened, and the U.S. imposed crippling economic sanctions. These sanctions targeted Venezuela's oil industry and finances, aiming to force regime change. The result: economic collapse, hyperinflation, shortages, and a humanitarian crisis that drove millions to flee Popad. While meant to punish the government, sanctions devastated ordinary Venezuelans. Instead of toppling Maduro, the pressure pushed Venezuela to seek new allies, especially Russia and China. The U.S. strategy of isolation backfired, deepening Venezuela's ties with America's rivals. Russia seized the opportunity to gain influence in the region. The sanctions designed to isolate Venezuela instead opened the door for Russian power in America's backyard. Economic warfare has redrawn alliances. The unintended consequence: a stronger Russia-Venezuela partnership. Isolated and under economic siege, Venezuela turned to Russia for survival. Russia saw strategic value in supporting a sanctioned nation with vast oil reserves in America's sphere. Russian energy giants like Rosneft invested billions in Venezuela's oil sector, helping bypass U.S. restrictions. This support kept Venezuela's government afloat, even if it didn't solve all its problems. Militarily, Russia became Venezuela's main arms supplier, providing advanced jets, missile systems, and training. Russian advisors and joint exercises strengthened Maduro's grip and signaled to the U.S. that intervention would be costly. Naval visits, once symbolic, now demonstrate real strategic partnership. For Russia, It's a low-cost way to challenge US power. For Venezuela, it's a lifeline and a deterrent. The alliance is now a fixture in the region's security landscape. US pressure on countries like Venezuela, Russia, Iran, China, and Cuba has forged an unexpected alliance, a resistance network. Instead of isolating these nations, sanctions have pushed them to cooperate, building a parallel global system. China provides financial muscle. Russia offers military support. Iran brings expertise in sanctions evasion. These countries trade, invest, and support each other, bypassing the US dollar and Western financial systems. Iranian oil reaches Venezuela, paid for in gold or commodities, outside US control. China buys oil from Russia and Iran, keeping their economies afloat. This closed loop blunts the impact of sanctions and weakens US leverage. The Russia-Venezuela alliance is a prime example. When the US tried to isolate Caracas, Moscow and Beijing stepped in. This isn't about ideology, it's pragmatic resistance to US dominance. Ironically, US policies have accelerated the rise of a coalition determined to challenge American power. The resistance network is reshaping global alliances. Critics of US foreign policy point to a glaring double standard. The US maintains hundreds of military bases worldwide, justifying them as necessary for stability and security. When the US Navy operates near rivals' borders, it's called defending freedom. When others do the same, it's labeled aggression. Russian warships in Venezuela are condemned, while US forces near Russia or China are normalized. This perceived hypocrisy undermines America's moral authority and alienates much of the world. Many countries see the US claiming rights it denies to others, fueling resentment. Rivals like Russia and China use this to portray the US as an imperial power, not a fair leader. The presence of Russian warships in the Caribbean highlights this double standard. Russia's message: if the US wants its security concerns respected, it must respect others as well. Ignoring this reality breeds resistance and erodes American influence. The Russia-Venezuela naval exercises mark a turning point in global politics. The unipolar moment, when the US was the sole superpower, is over. We now live in a multipolar world, with Russia and China challenging American influence. This shift is the result of decades of US policy choices, expanding alliances and using sanctions to coerce rivals. Instead of isolating adversaries, these strategies have united them in opposition. The old tools of sanctions and threats are losing effectiveness. The US must adapt, emphasizing diplomacy and recognizing other powers' legitimate interests. Russian warships in Venezuela are a stark reminder. Global power is now a two-way street. The challenge for America is to lead through cooperation, not dominance. The future of global stability depends on whether Washington can adjust to this new reality.